Good morning. Okay, we hope everybody has one copy of the test, but you need to share. Well, I have a few more of these that do the explanation, so if you can. And Roxanne has an announcement, right?
Well, 2 weeks from today, I would like you to help me bring treats for Barbara. She's having the nerve to leave real. I hate it, but I think the rest of us do too. So if you would bring muffins or some fruit or juice or something to celebrate Barb. So I've already decided I'm bringing, I think, banana bread or pumpkin bread or something. So if you would just... That's because you don't want to bring anything, right? So if you would just come and we'll put it back here on the table and we can, and that is the 19th, 2 weeks from today, and we'll munch a little as we do our lesson, and we'll have have our final goodbye for Barb, and we'll be happy and sad at the same time. We wanted to have a send-off for her.
She's moving.
And on a different note, announcement, if you haven't heard, the elevator is not working today. So unless you wish to spend the afternoon stuck in the elevator, don't go into that.
We have a newbie here today. This is Roberta Oshner. Kevin and Julie Oshner, you probably know from the church. Her beautiful granddaughter is Caitlin, that is the worship pastor at our Windsor location, the blonde that plays the guitar and sings really well.
Her grandson is now a converted Texan. He's a college student at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
And but it was funny. I always kid Julie. I said, "So is he in love with a Texas girl yet? Because they're going to be on him like chickens on a tree." And she said, "Yeah, there's one that's been after him for a year, and she's pretty well got him roped and tied up." I heard a Texas girl. They're great. Speaking of great ladies, I want to introduce to you a woman who needs no introduction, but she is the most extraordinary pastor's wife that you've ever met. Liz Troxell, come up here. Can you imagine being married to Tim? It wouldn't be boring, I'll tell you that. She has a PhD in patience and tolerance and the ability to calm down a man who's just been stung by a bee, you know.
And Jim's in all gas with all this flannel today.
I know. Everybody looks like Tim today with their flannel. All right, so Connie asked me several months ago, because every once in a while when Tim's preaching, he talks about Enneagram. Like Liz is an Enneagram 9, and so-and-so is an Enneagram this. And Connie's like, what is the Enneagram? Could you share with our class a little bit about the Enneagram? So that's what I'm going to do today. I am no expert. So I found this, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And for me, it was the first personality test that ever I felt like got me. Kind of like, I felt like, I was like, yes, that's me. I get this. This is what I struggle with. This is what I'm good at. This is how I relate to things. And so for me, I ended up just really liking it because it made sense to me. Well, some of the others, like the disc, and there's the one where it's like the retriever, the otter, like those 4 personality tests. Like those just never really made it for me, but this one I love. So that's all it is. It's just a personality test. Take it or leave it. You don't have to like it. It doesn't mean anything beyond just a personality test. So with that, the first page, the one that has the picture on it, that's what the Enneagram looks like. So Ennea is Greek for 9. So there's 9 different personalities that it dives into. And the gram is just Greek for written down. So the 9 types written down. What I like about this too is it's not just like you have one personality and it's kind of the same, it's static across the board. The Enneagram takes into account for like when you're stressed, here's what your number does. When you're healthy, here's what your number looks like. So there's fluidity with that, with stress and with health. And then the other thing I like about it is a lot of the reason you are your number is your motivation for why you do things. So as we go through it, you'll see there's like a core fear for most of the numbers. There's a core motivation for most of the numbers. And so that's how I found my number, was being like, why do I do the things that I do? And I was like, that's it. That is why I am an Enneagram 9. So we will start. I thought we'd just go through it kind of quick. And then I printed off that test. That's the Appendix A, the Enneagram assessment. There's a bajillion tests you can take online. And most of them are online because it kind of like tailors it as you go through and what you're clicking. So this is just a really simple one that you'll kind of label. What does it say? Like most likely, almost never, rarely, sometimes. So you kind of answer it for how that question feels to you. But starting with number 1 on that picture page, the number 1 is the reformer, also known as the perfectionist. So this person is very self-disciplined. Things are black and white. There is right and there is wrong. There is no gray, there is no in-between. A lot of times it says they're teachers or crusaders, advocate for change. They have high standards for things, so they can be a perfectionist. Sometimes they're impatient because they want things done well and done quickly. So their basic fear for an Enneagram 1 is being corrupt or evil or defective, right? To be wrong is just the worst thing that you could ever imagine. And so that's the Enneagram 1's core fear. Their basic desire is to be good enough, to have integrity, and to be balanced. So to be seen as good, as worthy, as honest, as true. Now the thing that we're not going to get into a ton, I think we could eventually if you guys are really interested in it. And I am by no means a great teacher of this. I just like it myself. But there's wings with each type as well. So each personality type has their main number. So 1 through 9, you have that main number. But then you also have a wing, and that's one of the numbers right next to you. So in Enneagram 1, if you look on the circle, they can be a 1 with a 9 wing of a peacemaker. So if they're a 1 with a 9 wing, they're a little bit more of an idealist. They have that right and wrong, but they maybe are a little bit more graceful in that. They can see how there's a little bit of gray area. Or they can be a 1 with a 2 wing, who's a little bit more of a helper. They still have right and wrong, but instead of always being so rigid, sometimes they like to help people in that. And so they'd be called the advocate. So underneath the 1, it says the key motivations: they want to be right, to strive higher, and improve everything. So they're very big on improving. All right, so the Enneagram 2. Are some of you guys missing them? They're not on the back? Well, I'm sorry. You'll just have to listen. I'll try and print them off for next time. Making 50 plus copies of multiple pages. I guess I missed a few. Sorry, guys. Can you tell I am not an Enneagram 1? Details. And like that order, that's not me. So the Enneagram 2, if you look on your picture, you can see that they are called the helper. They are really good at knowing what people need. They are better at giving than receiving. They're very caring, generous. If any of you guys know Roger on staff, he is an Enneagram 2. He loves to give to people, help people. And they're really good at intuiting what people need as well. They feel really valuable when people ask them for help, to the point that they're almost afraid to assert their own needs and ask for help because they feel like it's going to throw off their relationships because they're always the helper. So for them to need help is kind of a weird moment for them. They're warm-hearted, they're friendly, they're generous, they're self-sacrificing. So their basic fear, though, the fear of an Enneagram 1 is being unwanted or unworthy of being loved. So sometimes that's what pushes the Enneagram 2 into doing what they do, because they're afraid that if they're not always that helper, that they're unworthy or they're not going to be loved. Their basic desire, then, on that flip side, is to feel loved. That's why they do all the things that they do, is to feel loved. So again, with the wings, if you're an Enneagram 2, you can have a 1 wing, and they call that the servant. If you're an Enneagram 2, you can have a 3 wing, a host or a hostess. So again, their motivations, they want to be loved, to express their feelings for others. They want to be needed and appreciated, and they want to have others respond to them. Very personable. Type 3 is an achiever. So sounds like, I mean, you can kind of intuit from achiever what that means. They are very go, 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 very works orientated, very, they're the people who have the plan written down, and success orientated, excelling, and driven. These people can go, go, go. They're self-assured, ambitious, energetic. They're highly driven for advancement. So a lot of 3s are typically in that management role or a lead job, because they're so good at just continuing to go. They're diplomatic. They sometimes can have problems with workaholism and competitiveness because they are so driven. At their best, they're self-accepting, authentic, and they can be wonderful role models because they work so hard. So number 3, their basic fears, because they are so driven and so success-orientated, is of being worthless, right? And this doesn't just have to be jobs, right? Like, you can be driven in so many other things. So their basic feel is not having worth. Their basic desire, then, on the flip side, is to feel valuable and worthwhile. The Enneagram, again, their wings. If they have a 2 wing, they're called a charmer. And if they have a 4 wing, they're a professional. I am pretty sure that our graphic designer, if you've met Ryan Vanderbush, I'm pretty sure he's an Enneagram 3 with a 4 wing. So he's super driven, good at getting things done. But as we'll see, he's a 4 who has a lot of creativity and artisticness. So number 4 is called the individualist or the romantic. So number 4 loves to be unique. That's important. And sometimes in that flip side, like, they feel different than a lot of people. They are unique themselves. They can sometimes describe themselves as having so many feelings in a day. All the feelings, right? Ups and downs. 4s can be described as being comfortable in melancholy. They're okay with kind of that sad feeling, and are always wondering, like, why are people trying to cheer me up all the time? Like, this is just an emotion, and it's an okay emotion to have. 4s are usually creative and artistic in some way. So a lot of, like, artists, painters, singers, things like that, a lot of them have either a 4 wing or are a 4 themselves. They're good at being introspective, expressive, dramatic, but then, it lists some of every number has a good and a bad, right? So sometimes they can get a little temperamental with all of their emotions. 4s are very self-aware, sensitive, can be reserved. They are great with emotions because they experience all of them and aren't scared of them. So they're very good at being with people in their emotions rather than trying to drive them out of their emotions. At their best, they are inspired and highly creative. They're able to renew themselves and transform their experiences. So their basic fear of a 4 is that they have no identity or personal significance. So that not feeling unique, not feeling special, just kind of being one of many. Their basic desire of an Enneagram 4 is to find themselves and their significance, to have an identity, to have their uniqueness known. And here's again with their wings. If they have a 3 wing, they're called an aristocrat. And a 4 with a 5 wing is a bohemian, so a little bit more, artistic, you might think. Key motivations for a 4 They want to express themselves in their individuality, to create and surround themselves with beauty, to maintain certain moods and feelings, and to take care of their emotional needs before anything else. So that is a 4. Does everyone have the next page, 5, or did I miss that one too? I'm so sorry. I'll read it for you. Number 5 is the investigator. So a 5 finds a lot of their security in information rather than relationships. A 5 loves to collect data, to know knowledge. So it's said that the internet was both the best and the worst thing for an Enneagram 5. Because all that information is available, but it also means that everyone else has all of that information as well. An Enneagram 5 loves to know things for knowledge's sake. They're very cerebral, receptive, but can sometimes get a little isolated with all of that knowledge that they have. They would rather have knowledge and ideas and things like that rather than worldly things. Like the accumulation of stuff is not quite as important to a 5. My older sister is an Enneagram 5, and she did quite a bit of traveling after college before she was married. And she kept a notebook of all the things that she bought in a year. She was trying to save some money, so that was part of it. But she also is an Enneagram 5, so this factored into it. And she bought, I think it was 1 or 2 things that were a non-necessity for an entire year. Of just like, and she loved it. It was so fun for her to keep a list of what she did. Because stuff just didn't matter as much to her, and she was accumulating experiences and knowledge and ideas, and that just really was exciting for her. And for me, it sounded absolutely terrible. I just like, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but for her it was great. 5s are alert, insightful, and curious. They're really good at concentrating and developing complex ideas and skills. They can become a little detached and high-strung and intense, but they're great visionary pioneers, and they're able to see the world in a new way with all of this data that they collect. Incredibly observant is another thing I would say for Enneagram 5s. Their basic fear is being useless, helpless, or incapable. So that's kind of why they collect a lot of that data. They don't want to be useless. And their desire is to be capable and competent. So to if you're asked a question, they want to know the answer, and they want to have reasons behind it. If you are an Enneagram 5 with a 4 wing, you're iconoclast. And a 5 with a 6 wing, you are a problem solver. So the key motivations for a 5 is to possess knowledge, to understand the environment, and to have everything figured out as a way of defending yourself from threats in the environment. Type 6 is a loyalist. The type 6s are committed. They are very security orientated, engaging, responsible, a little bit anxious, and sometimes suspicious. Type 6 are great at planning for the worst because their brain is always thinking, what is going to happen next? What is going to derail what good thing is coming? So in that sense, they're great at planning ahead and thinking through things because they've already done all the contingencies ahead of time. But the type 6, according to the people who wrote this, struggle a little bit more with anxiety than some of the other numbers because they just can't shut that part of their brain off that's always wondering, what's going to happen, what's going to drop, what's going to be the problem that I encounter. They are reliable, hardworking, responsible, and trustworthy. They are excellent troubleshooters because they can foresee problems, but they can become a little defensive and anxious, running on stress while complaining about it. Cautious and indecisive, sometimes. They have some doubt, have some problems with doubt and suspicion, but they are stable, self-reliant, and they champion themselves and others. As a 6, I have a few 6 friends, and they are the people that once you are friends with them, you are friends for life. Whether you move 10 hours away, whether you see them once a year, loyal, like that part of the name loyalist, they will stick with you through thick and thin, so they're great people. The basic fear of a 6 is being without support and guidance. To be kind of alone as a 6 and feel alone. Not necessarily physically alone, but just to not feel that support from friends or family. So therefore, their basic desire is to have security and support. So the 6 can have a 5 wing, and they can become a defender with all that knowledge that they build up with the 5. An Enneagram 6 with a 7 wing becomes a buddy. So 6s, their motivations, they want to have security, feel supported by others, have lots of reassurance to fight against their anxiety and insecurity. So number 7 is called the enthusiast. This is typically an incredibly optimistic person most of the time. If you've heard the word FOMO, fear of missing out, okay, I have typed you, Jim. I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure you're an Enneagram 7. So if you guys know Daniel Heister, who preaches sometimes and is up front, hardcore 7. So he will go to concerts. He went to, she's dating Travis Kelce. Why can I not? Taylor Swift. He went to the Taylor Swift concert twice with his sister, and he said it was just he and 50,000 of his best friends hanging out. And he truly means that. Like, being around a crowd, people, you know, not always. These are broad generalizations, right? Like, but being around people fills him up, and he just loves it. So the type 7 is busy, variety seeking, spontaneous, versatile, and sometimes a little scattered. 7s are I think we've confirmed Jim's type. So they're typically extroverted, optimistic, playful, high-spirited, and practical. Sometimes they can misapply their many talents, becoming overextended and, you know, kind of jump from thing to thing because they've got a lot of stuff on their plates. They constantly seek new and exciting experiences. Sometimes they are a little impatient and impulsive. But if they focus their talents on worthwhile goals, they can become appreciative, joyous, and satisfied. So as you're learning with all these types, right, like there's good and there's bad to each type. No type is better than the other type. We all have our pitfalls. We all have our things that we do in stress and in health. Yes?
So if we don't have a personality, this is going to be easy.
You just take them all, Steve. So a 7's basic fear is being deprived or being impatient. And their basic desire is to be satisfied and content and to have their needs fulfilled. So if you're an Enneagram 7 and you have a 6 wing, you're a bit of an entertainer. And if you're a 7 with an 8 wing, you have a little bit more realist in you. So the key motivation to a 7 is wanting to maintain their freedom and happiness, to avoid missing out on worthwhile experiences, to keep themselves excited and occupied, and to avoid pain. All right, the Enneagram 8 is the challenger. This is the quote that they put on this page in one of the books I read said, "Lead me, follow me, or get out of my way." So this is a person who usually is, again, along with that Enneagram 3, a lot of times a 3 or an 8 are in positions of leadership, or they're a boss because they're very good at making quick decisions. One thing about an Enneagram 8 is they love justice. They want to see a little different than the 1 where there's right and wrong. They want everyone to have that justice. If it's not fair, if it wasn't right, they are going to champion the cause to make sure that justice is seen. They can be seen as powerful and domineering. They are very self-confident, decisive, and a bit confrontational sometimes, because confrontation doesn't scare, an Enneagram 8 because it can lead to that justice for the person being the. So it's not confrontation just to fight and have fun fighting. It's confrontation for justice. Assertive, they're very protectful or protective, straight talking, decisive. They can make a million decisions in a minute. They can sometimes, like I said, confrontational, which can sometimes be a bit intimidating. Sometimes they have problems with their tempers and are worried about being vulnerable. At their best, they use their strength to improve others' lives, becoming heroic and inspiring. So an 8's basic fear is being harmed or being controlled by others, or out of control. If they aren't the one calling the shots and deciding what's happening and they have to be under someone else, that's their basic fear. So I am pretty sure Tim is an 8. And when Noah was sick, I think this was what was so hard, was we couldn't control it. We couldn't control who our doctors were. We couldn't control everything with medicine for a long time. And he couldn't fix the situation by just doing. So he was out of control. And so that felt really hard for him. Because their basic desire as an 8 is to protect themselves and those they love. If you are an 8 with a 7 wing, they call you a maverick. And if you're an 8 with a 9 wing, you're a bear. Kind of like poking the sleeping bear, right? Good until you push them. An 8.
Liz, did you do the desire? Yeah, I missed that.
Basic desire of an 8 is to protect themselves and those they love. Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. A key motivation for an 8 is to be self-reliant, to prove their strength and resist weakness, to be important in the world and stay in control of the situation. And then we come to the Enneagram 9, which is the peacemaker, which I said is what I am. And so the peacemaker is a bit of an avoider, not a self-starter, not very decisive. Routines are really comfortable for me because I know what to expect, I know what's coming. Saying, it doesn't have to be the same every day, but this is what we do on Sundays, and this is what we do. I mean, when we go up to the mountains, I have my same 4 meals that I cook in the mountains. That's part of my routine. That's what I like. A bit self-effacing, receptive, reassuring, and agreeable, and complacent. 9s are accepting, trusting, and stable. I sometimes describe myself, I have this. I'm pretty darn stable. Sometimes can be creative, optimistic, definitely supportive, and willing to go along with others to keep the peace, wanting to avoid conflict at all costs. Sometimes have problems with inertia and stubbornness, but at their best, they are all embracing and are able to bring people together. So the basic fear for an Enneagram 9 is of loss or separation, or conflict, I would say. Their basic desire is to have that inner stability or that peace in relationships because conflict is scary. An Enneagram 9 with an 8 wing is a referee because they're a little bit bolder and they can handle some of that conflict, but they also have the 9 in them. And an Enneagram 9 with a 1 is called a dreamer. Enneagram 9's key motivation is to create harmony in their environment, to avoid conflict and tension, and to preserve things as they are. One other thing here, they group the Enneagram types into triads, and that's kind of they're somewhat where the core motivations come from. So the intellectual centers are types 5, 6, and 7. And they do a lot of thinking, a lot of data collecting. Intellectual centers are 5, 6, and 7. A lot of thinking, a lot of data collecting, maybe the types that have a little bit more fear or anxiety or worry are those types. The emotional center are types 2, 3, and 4, largely motivated by feeling and images. And then types 8, 9, and 1 are called the gut triad, motivated by feelings in their gut, right? Like those gut motivations that can sometimes have anger. Because even though, 8s we can see the anger in because they're the challenger. And 1s have that black and white. And so, they're going to be mad if someone breaks it. But 9s also have it. We just kind of tamper it down until all of a sudden it blows up really big. And so they have some gut anger issues as well. And so I didn't want to go super deep into all of the types before I had you guys maybe take a test and then see if you had questions. Because there's so many, you can go real deep into this, which I have not done, or you can just kind of scratch the surface and see what your type is. And then there's all sorts of things about how this type relates to that type. And I've just liked it because I've known some of, once I know my friends, or I've even done this for my kids in a little bit, and my Noah is a 7. So he wants to be around people all the time, which is kind of exhausting for an introvert. But he also has a hard time buckling down and doing his homework because it's not fun, and he could be doing something else that would be a lot more fun. So once you kind of, it's that personality. Once you know why someone's doing it, it helps you relate to them and understand them versus well, that's just not the way I am, so I don't understand it. So that's why I've liked the Enneagram. So I was going to have you guys take the test if you're willing. And it's just, you read the statements and then you score them yeah, that's not me, so that'll be a rarely or never, or that's me all the time. And then it has you tally up your point total at the end. And then the highest section is what they say is likely your Enneagram number. Jim?
So if you're Enneagram 4, what type does that translate to?
So it puts them in weird order for this test because they don't want you to self-type yourself right now. So if you go through and take it, at the very end it'll say type A is this number, and it'll tell you. Does that make sense?
So you do it all.
Yep, you do every type to see which number gets the highest. Jim?
Circular, there's lines going across this circle. Do they have some meaning?
The lines do have meaning, yes. So each number has a connection to two other numbers. So we'll start with the 9 because that's the one I know the most. So the 9 in times of stress follows that line to 6. And I can take on the bad qualities of a 6 when I am stressed. So I get really anxious and nervous and distrusting, right? All the things that are not great about a 6 come out in a 9 when they're stressed. Then the 9 also goes to a number 3, and that is in times of health. I can become the good things of a 3, so I can be incredibly driven. I can get things done because a 3 is an achiever. And so each number has that of where they go in times of stress, they can show this number, and where they go in times of health, they can show this number. And then even beyond that, each number also has 3 subtypes so there's so much nuance to this where 1 9 is not another 9, right? There's a lot of flexibility in that.
This is the word stress and
Health? Health.
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 Health. Yeah, absolutely.
It's called hard to hear.
It's fair. Any other questions, Charles?
Have you seen
It says that if we're figured out a certain number, it will always be that number as part of their life change.
So according to this, right, and this is not an end-all be-all, right? So take it what you will. Yeah. Charles was asking if once you find your number, if you stay that number for your entire life. And the thought is yes, you do. Because some places say this goes back to something that happened in your childhood that kind of developed this core belief or core motivation or core fear. And so you've had this your whole life, but your wings can change. depending on situation. And then there's all that fluidity between health and stress. So yes, they do say your number stays the same throughout your life. Steve?
When I was in Vietnam, they had something a little different. When you were called a number 10 GI, you were sure. Believe it or not, that's called.
Well, good thing there's no number 10 here, Steve. So there is no jerk. I love it.
Number 1 GI.
Love it.
Number 1 GI.
She did different penny that has she doesn't line it here. I'm sure we'll get one of these. She'll bring it next week.
What's that? Sure. You got 25 minutes for either questions or tests.
Self-evaluation.
Redo yours.
It is hard to separate because we see ourselves
I don't think about it.
differently.
I'm not this analytical.
Which will come out.
Yes, I just go by my feelings.
Follow straight down, you'll see A is actually an Enneagram 4, and B is an Enneagram 6. They mix the order up so you wouldn't answer based on what type you think you are. They tried to mix it up and kind of keep it secret. So the highest number is the most likely number that you are. And then it goes from there. So it asks you to list your top 3 because there's some variance in that. So then it asks you to read the last 2 pages to find, like, here's my 3 top scores. Which one of these best fits who I think I am? So that's kind of how you end the test. And a good thought, there was one gal who had 3 identical scores and 1 right under it, so like 74, 74, 74, 73. And one of them was a 9, an Enneagram 9. You're most likely an Enneagram 9 if you have a lot of similar scores, because an Enneagram 9, the reason they put them at the top of the triangle is the Enneagram 9 can see everybody's personality and understand where everyone comes from. So they have a little bit of everyone kind of in them, but they also can merge. And so like if you are with a 6 all the time, you can kind of merge with them and do their thing. And so if you have a lot of similar scores, you might be an Enneagram 9 because you have a hard time making decisions. And it depends on who you're with if you'll say yes or no to this. So just a thought. And there's no bad numbers. So all numbers are good. There's no inherently female or masculine number. All the numbers work for Someone had a question. Dorothy, use your pens back. I would like my pens back, please. There's a bucket there. Thank you. Ron, do you have a question? Oh yeah, because I think they could be a little bit more honest. Like, oh yeah, that's oh, for sure. Yep.
There you go. Yeah, that sounds better. Yeah.